moving on now, guys. There isn't a lot that we have to do on these sections. One thing that you do need to be aware of is detail level, obviously. So what you're seeing here is a course detail level wall section. It does not show any of the layers of the material. It just shows kind of like your schematic floor plan back in the day. But it's really easy to give this thing a little bit of life just by turning on that layer. So if you go to fine quality, you're going to start to see some of your exterior wall layers and finishes and stuff show up, which is, it's a welcome change from just, white boxy walls. So the other thing that I want to point out is that these sections, they're totally not grounded right now, and a common practice for this kind of application is to just draw in what's happening at the ground plane. Okay, and I don't really know what the foundation system is on this. I don't know what, we could look through a little bit if we want to, but actually let's just take a quick look. I was going to ballpark it, but, oh, he's not even showing it in section. Oh, yeah. There we go. So we've got slab on grade. Looks like it's all slab on grade. 13 AD3 1. Yeah, it's all just slab on grade. Okay, that works with a turned down footing. So that's actually really easy for us. We could model it if we wanted to, but we don't really need to. So the way I'm going to show it, at least in section, is I'm just going to do 2 layers of regions. Okay, did we do regions yet? We haven't done a lot with detail components, have we? All right, good. So this is a good kind of segue into what we're going to be doing when we get into wall sections after the midterm. So once you start to get into the more detailed stuff in Revit, the modeling tends to take a little bit of a back seat, and then you start to detail things as if you're drafting in sort of like a AutoCAD environment, right, where things are happening in 2D. So there are architectural elements that we draw using 2-dimensional components, and most notably under the annotation tab, we're going to be using the region element right now, which is basically hatch patterns. So I'm going to click on region. For me, I'm just going to stick with the rectangle, and thin lines is fine for right now. But what I want you guys to do is draw a box across your level 1 and just go outside of what your crop region is showing, just like that. Okay. You don't have to do much else with this, except I want you to be sure that if you hit the checkbox, you're going to see that it's actually like a crosshatch. I don't want a crosshatch. I want to show an earth hatch. So I think it's preloaded. Maybe not. All right, we have to do a new one. So let's go to Edit Type, and let's duplicate this, and let's just call it Earth. And then finally, just go to Fill Pattern, and you're going to set it just like you did with everything else. So just click on Earth, hit OK, and there's your Earth pattern. So that sort of simulates your building sitting down on a flat site. I'll give you guys a moment to do this, and then I'll continue on with the last part. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, guys, we're just layering up these regions. We're going to do one for a representation of our foundational system. Now, because this is a schematic design set, we don't really have much of an idea of like where our structure is going to be inside the building. We might have some idea. But right now, I'm looking at my building, and there's like there's no real serious bearing wall in here. I forget what that one is. TL. I don't recall what that wall is. I don't think it's a bearing wall. But so basically, I just have a slab that goes all the way across my building, and then it turns down into a footing. Okay, so that's what I'm going to represent. And that's kind of what you see in this section, wherever that section went.
So your grid lines, do you bring them down to the top of your earth, or do you bring your grid lines below the earth?
Oh, yeah. Good question. So yeah, the grid lines, generally the way I do this is they kind of, stop somewhere in the earth plane.
Oh, you don't get in here.
Yeah, generally.
Doesn't sound right, sorry.
But you could do it. You could do it any way you want. You can go down there and then, or you don't want to stop it right on it because that gets confusing. You know. Anyway, actually, so a general rule of thumb, in my opinion, is with like annotative elements, never stop it exactly on something, because that's where it starts to look like it's a piece of the architecture, because it's perfectly calibrated. You can stop these things short and just represent it that way, or you can pull them all the way down. But it, you know, whatever the case, just don't stop it. Oh shoot, just don't stop it right on it. Okay. All right. So let's get back to it. Anyway, so I'm going to open up region again, and I'm going to pick. We don't have concrete. Wow, this template, this default template, really doesn't have a lot of stuff. So let's create that one. We're going to create concrete, and we're going to click on duplicate. I'm going to call this one concrete. Then you change that fill pattern. You guys are probably getting used to this stuff by now. Change the fill pattern to concrete. Hit OK. And actually on this one, I don't generally like the concrete hatch to be black. So I'm going to change this to kind of a gray color. I'll choose the mid-gray there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our exterior wall, the exterior most of our exterior wall. So that would be this one right here. And we're going to draw from the plywood. Okay, so the plywood layer right here, that's your first layer inside. Actually, no, we're going to draw from inside the plywood where the studs go. Okay, and I'm going to just draw down a line down about 2 feet to start. Okay, it's probably going to go more than that. And I'll go 18 inches over, and then I'm going to come up. We went 2 feet down, so I'm going to go 1 foot 8 inches up for a 4-inch slab. Okay, it's a really thin slab. It might be 6 inches in reality, but then I'm going to carry that all the way across. I like to take shortcuts and not have to worry about perfectly measuring things and redrawing things. So generally, like with this kind of thing, I'll just sweep this corner, do a quick mirror somewhere along the way, and then move it into place. That's just like a shortcut I'd take very frequently. Okay, and then you're just going to need one line that goes across the top, which that one is misaligned. Oh, I just realized, yeah, the whole thing is misaligned. And then just kind of close this little corner and you should be good to go with that. So this whole thing, I'm going to hit tab on it, just move that down so that it's exactly in line with the top. And then finally, I want you to just be aware that even though we drew our earth hatch with thin lines, the slab is being cut. So that should utilize a thicker line. So let's go to wide lines and then hit check. So now what you see is a representation of our slab and foundation walls under our building. Any questions? Okay, let's do that for both of our sections, and then we'll move on to some other stuff, simple things that we can do that's going to kind of just make this thing pop a little bit.